You went to the border in January?
Well, I've been to the border numerous times,
The
actually.
last one I remember was in January.
Yeah,
Last
that's
time?
where I went down with the
Yeah,
with the
big
house.
group, 60.
Yeah, that was the biggest group of members to ever be on the border.
What did you see then? What's improved? What's gotten worse since then? You know, would the bill that got spiked in the Senate have made a difference at this point?
No, the bill that got spiked in the Senate would not have made a difference. It did nothing to reduce the flow across the border. There was a trigger there that, like, after 20,000 or something, I mean, it would have allowed millions to come in. It was more about how do you deal with these folks after they're here, in terms of their needs are being met, versus how do we actually seal the border off. And so it was a strikingly bad bill, and I say that despite the fact it was a friend of mine from Oklahoma that was the lead Republican on that. Somebody I did a lot of Bible study with when he was in the House. But what I saw when I was down, we saw a lot of different things. We spent time. I think I've done maybe 3 or 4 Farm Bill listening sessions when I was on the border. I didn't do any of that visit, but we were right down on the border with farmers and ranchers, and the stuff was graphic that we saw and heard about. It was like, I don't know about you, but I like going out on the front porch or the back porch with a cup of coffee in the morning. And this rancher and their spouse would do that, and there'd be a dead body in their front yard. They're just the graphic things that they saw, and how they were no longer felt safe in their own home, and how they really they were armed themselves all the time. I'm from Pennsylvania. I shouldn't be surprised by this, but by God, when I was in Texas, I'd ride around on these ranches in different places, and the amount of firearms, that they were all equipped, they were all armed, because you had these cartels who were just dangerous and evil, and then the other parts when I was in Texas, when I'd step out of the truck and they'd tell me where to step. It had nothing to do with immigration. It was about the rattlesnakes. So I didn't care for that either, though. Telling me, be careful when you step out and watch where you walk. The amount of damage that was done, the fences that would be ripped down, the things that be stolen off these. A lot of the folks coming across, and where that would happen on the ranches, these are people that didn't want to get caught. The majority of people coming across, my observation, and I witnessed this firsthand at Eagle Pass, and some of the other crossings we were at, people knew the routine. They waded across the river. They presented themselves to a member of the Border Patrol, and the Border Patrol would, sit them down, would get their name, any ID that they had. A lot of them didn't have. And eventually put them in a van and took them to a processing center for 48 hours. And at the end of the 48 or 72 hours, actually, and at the end of that time, they would give them a bus ticket, an airline ticket. They would give them an appointment. They would get an appointment of sometime in the future, usually years in the future, in a location where they were supposed to show up for their asylum adjudication. I don't think most of these folks are going to do that. I think they're going to try to get lost in the interior of the country. The other thing I observed is the stress on the Border Patrol. The amount of suicides among Border Patrol is significant because they can't do their job. I stopped one young lady. She stopped. I was walking along the border in Tucson, Arizona, and I was along the wall where the wall was, and then there were big gaps. The wall had not been completed, even though all the materials and the machines had been sitting there for a couple years. I just wanted to ask her. Well, I wanted to thank her for her service and ask her what it was like. And she says, she says, I don't feel like a Border Patrol agent. I'm an Uber driver. That's what I do. I pick these people up, and the pregnant ones are ready to have a child. I take them to it wasn't Tucson. It was in Arizona anyways, where they grow a lot of leafy vegetables. I can't remember the name of it right now, I'm sorry. But she takes them to the local hospital so their babies can be born in the U.S. The rest of them get taken to a processing center. And she says, we're not Border Patrol today, we're Uber drivers. And then part of it is, the ones that do not want to be caught, and that was kind of the focus I heard from, because that try to escape apprehension, they're, that's what I heard from these farmers and ranchers that are on the border. They talk about how they steal vehicles. I will say some of them, there's at least one that wasn't very bright. They stole a D9 dozer, and that's what they ran up the road to try to outrun law enforcement in. If they were coming, the easiest path is to turn yourself into the Border Patrol, because you'll get a shower, you'll get medical care, you'll get an airline ticket, you get a bus ticket. I don't know how much they get. I don't know what kind of a card or money they get. Their needs are met, right? I mean, when I flew out of these different cities in Texas and Arizona, they on the plane were people that were being processed. When I was in the center, and they'd have a card that they were wearing that, because many of them didn't speak English. They had no identification whatsoever. I guess the airline was okay with it. I know I couldn't get on the plane without a driver's license, but these folks are on planes going to different cities, and the other ones that avoid apprehension, you got to wonder why. Is it drugs? Is it violence? Is it gang related? And the gotaways, I guess, is what they're referred to. And these are the ones that are in our country and are dangerous.